Emily Carter stood by the mist-covered window of the old Ashcombe Manor, her breath fogging the cold glass. It had been more than 10 years since she had left the village behind, chasing a life in London that had never truly felt like hers. Now, a letter from a solicitor had drawn her back, the news unsettling. Her grandmother Eleanor Carter, famed mystery novelist, was gone. But the letter held more than just sorrow. It hinted at secrets hidden within Eleanor's vast collection of unpublished manuscripts, secrets that Emily could no longer ignore. With her young daughter Sophie clutching her hand tightly, Emily stepped through the creaking front door, memories flooding back like shadows from the past. The house was frozen in time. Dusty bookshelves lined the walls, and the scent of old paper filled the air. As Emily began to explore Eleanor's study, a chill ran down her spine. On the desk lay a single envelope addressed to her in Eleanor's delicate handwriting. Inside was a cryptic note. "The story is not over, Emily. Listen to the whispers." A sudden knock echoed from upstairs, startling them both. Emily hesitated, heart pounding, before she and Sophie moved cautiously towards the staircase. Something was stirring in Ashcombe, and it was not just the wind. The heavy wooden stairs groaned beneath Emily's careful steps as she led Sophie upwards. Each creak seemed louder than the last in the oppressive silence of the manor. The house had a way of swallowing sound, as if it were holding its breath, waiting. At the top of the stairs, a narrow corridor stretched into darkness. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow Emily and Sophie with quiet accusation. Emily's fingers brushed the faded wallpaper as she passed, her mind racing with questions she had buried long ago. The sudden chill deepened, and Sophie shivered beside her. Emily squeezed her hand gently, trying to hide her own unease. Then from the end of the corridor, a faint melody drifted through the air, a haunting tune, delicate but filled with sorrow. Drawn forward, they reached Eleanor's old bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, revealing a room frozen in time. The bed was neatly made. Dust motes danced in the pale light streaming through the lace curtains. On the bedside table lay a small music box, its lid open, playing the same mournful melody. Emily stepped inside, heart pounding. The air was thick with memories, her grandmother's perfume, the scratch of a fountain pen on paper, whispers of late-night writing sessions. But there was something else, something darker. Suddenly, the music box stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than before, broken only by a faint rustling sound behind the heavy wardrobe. Emily's breath caught. She moved closer, pushing the wardrobe aside, revealing a hidden alcove. Inside, stacked carefully, were dozens of notebooks, journals, and old letters tied with faded ribbons. Emily pulled one out, its cover cracked with age. As she flipped through, words appeared that no one else had ever read. Confessions, warnings, and references to a secret society her grandmother had been part of, one that dealt with the thin veil between the living and the dead. Sophie tugged at Emily's sleeve. "Mummy, I heard someone whisper my name." Her voice trembled. Emily swallowed hard, clutching the journal to her chest. "We're not alone here, Sophie. And whatever your grandmother found, it's far from finished." From the window, the first rays of dusk slipped in, casting long shadows that seemed to creep closer. Outside, the village of Ashcombe settled quietly, unaware that long-buried secrets were stirring awake once again. That evening, the manor felt colder than before, as if the walls themselves were breathing uneasily. Emily sat at the heavy oak desk in Eleanor's study, surrounded by piles of dusty notebooks and brittle letters. Sophie had fallen asleep in the adjoining room, but Emily's mind refused rest. The journal she held was filled with cryptic notes and sketches, symbols that twisted and turned like ancient runes, alongside fragmented sentences about a veil between worlds, and warnings of forces that should never be disturbed. Hours passed. Emily's fingers traced a passage written in Eleanor's precise hand. "The whispers carry the truth, but only to those who dare to listen. Beware the price of knowledge." She shivered, feeling the weight of those words pressing down on her. Suddenly, a soft tapping came from the window. Emily looked up. Outside, the fog had thickened, swirling in strange patterns that almost resembled faces. She stood and pulled back the heavy curtains. The village lights flickered dimly through the mist, but in the distance, something glimmered, an old lantern swinging slowly near the abandoned chapel at the edge of Ashcombe Woods. Emily had heard stories about that chapel. It was said to be a place where Eleanor often disappeared for hours, lost in her research. Locals whispered about eerie chants and strange gatherings long after the sun had set. Compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity, Emily decided she could not stay locked inside. She grabbed her coat and quietly woke Sophie. Together, they stepped out into the cold night, the fog curling around their feet as they made their way toward the chapel. The path was lined with ancient oak trees, their gnarled branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. As they approached, the swinging lantern cast flickering shadows on the weathered stone walls. A sudden rustle in the bushes made Sophie cling tighter to her mother. Then a voice, a low whisper carried by the wind, called Emily's name. Heart pounding, Emily glanced around, but saw only darkness. At the chapel door, she hesitated. With a deep breath, she pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with incense and old smoke. Candlelight flickered along the stone walls, illuminating strange symbols painted in deep red. In the center of the room lay a circle of salt, broken in places, and scattered pieces of parchment covered in unfamiliar writing. Emily's eyes caught movement near the altar. A figure cloaked in black stood with their back to her, murmuring words that seemed to echo from another world. Suddenly, the figure turned, revealing a face both familiar and haunting. It was Eleanor. But how could that be? Emily's breath caught in her throat as she stared into the face before her. Eleanor's eyes, once warm and full of life, now seemed shadowed with sorrow and something else, an unspoken warning. The figure moved slowly forward, voice barely above a whisper. "You should not be here, Emily. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed again." Emily swallowed hard but forced herself to speak. "Grandmother, how is this possible? You're gone." Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. "Gone in body, but not in spirit. The veil between worlds grows thin here, and I have lingered, bound by the secrets I could not share." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. What secrets? What is this place really for? The shadows seemed to lengthen as Eleanor's gaze fell on the scattered parchments. This manor holds more than memories. It is a gateway, a link to things best left forgotten. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the chapel, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. Sophie's small hand gripped Emily's tightly. "You must find the codex," Eleanor whispered urgently, "before those who seek it do. It contains the key to balance between light and shadow." Emily's heart pounded as she struggled to comprehend. Where? What is the codex? Eleanor's form began to fade like mist. Look to the music that never ended, to the song that holds the past's echoes. The answers lie in Ashcombe's oldest secrets. And with that, the room fell silent, the oppressive stillness pressing in once more. Outside, the fog thickened, and distant howls echoed through the trees. Emily knew this was only the beginning. The following morning, the heavy fog lingered stubbornly over Ashcombe, wrapping the village in a ghostly shroud. Emily sat by the old fireplace in the manor's drawing room, her thoughts swirling like the mist outside. Sophie played quietly nearby, unaware of the weight pressing on her mother's heart. Emily's mind replayed Eleanor's words. The codex, the song that never ended, the echoes of the past. What could it all mean? Determined to find answers, she returned to the dusty manuscripts and the scattered parchments in Eleanor's study. Hours passed as Emily sifted through the fragile pages, deciphering Eleanor's cryptic handwriting. Among the notes were musical scores unlike any Emily had seen before. Complex compositions weaving unfamiliar harmonies and haunting melodies. One piece stood out. An incomplete sonata titled The Hidden Melody. Emily traced her fingers along the notes. Something about the music felt alive, as if it whispered secrets just beyond understanding. Her heart quickened. Could this be the key Eleanor spoke of? Suddenly, a folded letter slipped from between the pages. Emily carefully unfolded it, revealing a faded, elegant script. To those who seek truth, beware the shadows that follow. The melody is more than sound. It is a bridge, a covenant between worlds. Protect it well, for the balance depends on your courage. The warning sent a chill down Emily's spine. Determined, she decided to consult Ashcombe's village historian, Mr. Fletcher, an elderly man known for his knowledge of local legends and lore. Perhaps he could shed light on the mysterious sonata and the codex. Wrapped in her coat, Emily and Sophie ventured out through the damp, twisting lanes. The village seemed unusually silent, the usual morning bustle replaced by an eerie stillness. At the village library, nestled between ancient stone cottages, Mr. Fletcher awaited them. His eyes twinkled behind thick spectacles as he examined the letter and sheet music. "This sonata," he murmured, "has been whispered about for generations. It's said to have been composed by a secret society in Ashcombe, one that believed music could open gateways to other realms." Emily's breath caught. "A secret society?" Mr. Fletcher nodded gravely. "Yes. They called themselves the Guardians of the Veil. They used music as a safeguard, to maintain balance and keep darker forces at bay. The codex you seek is believed to contain the complete compositions and the knowledge to wield their power." Emily felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The manor, the music, Eleanor's legacy. It was all entwined in something far greater than she had imagined. As they spoke, Sophie tugged at Emily's sleeve, pointing toward the window. Outside, the fog was shifting, swirling in patterns that almost resembled notes on a staff. Emily's eyes widened. The melody wasn't just in the manuscripts, it was alive in the air itself. A sudden knocking at the library door startled them. Mr. Fletcher glanced toward the entrance, then exchanged a wary look with Emily. "Be cautious, Emily," he said softly. "You are not the only one searching for the codex." The shadows outside the window seemed to grow longer as the afternoon sun struggled to pierce the mist. Emily knew the journey ahead was fraught with danger. Yet she also understood that uncovering the truth was the only way to protect her family, and Ashcombe itself. That evening, the manor seemed heavier, as if the walls themselves were aware of the growing storm outside. Emily sat at the large oak desk in Eleanor's study, illuminated only by the soft glow of an antique lamp. Sophie had fallen asleep upstairs, her small form tucked beneath the floral quilt Eleanor had once sewn. Determined to follow the clues, Emily decided to explore the Ashcombe village archives. Rumor had it that the Guardians of the Veil had left traces of their existence hidden within the village records. The archives were housed in an old stone building behind the church, its ancient door creaking ominously as Emily pushed it open. Inside, rows of dusty shelves stretched towards the ceiling, lined with ledgers, journals, and brittle parchment dating back centuries. Emily began her search among the oldest documents, fingers trembling slightly as she carefully pulled out a worn leather-bound volume. Its pages revealed accounts of secret meetings, coded messages in musical notation, and cryptic references to a veil that separated worlds. Hours passed unnoticed as Emily deciphered the code embedded in the manuscripts. The message was chilling, a warning of a coming imbalance if the codex fell into the wrong hands. Suddenly, a shadow flickered near the doorway. Emily spun around, heart pounding, but no one was there. Just the rustle of ancient pages and the whisper of the wind. She realized then how precarious her position was. She was not only uncovering a family secret but also stepping into a centuries-old battle between forces beyond understanding. Returning to the manor with the precious volume, Emily knew she must protect it at all costs. Her grandmother's spirit was counting on her. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it an eerie melody that seemed to echo from the past, a haunting call to action that could not be ignored. Days passed, but the feeling of unease only grew stronger in Ashcombe. Emily's discovery had set events into motion she could neither predict nor control. Shadows seemed to gather not only in the corners of the manor, but also within the village itself. Emily spent her hours poring over the ancient volume, trying to piece together the Guardians of the Veil's true purpose. She realized that the codex was more than a collection of music. It was a manual for preserving the balance between light and darkness. One evening, as dusk settled, Emily received an unexpected visitor. A man in a long coat stood at the manor gates, his expression unreadable. Introducing himself as Thomas Avery, a scholar of folklore and ancient music, he claimed to have been searching for the codex for years. Emily was cautious but intrigued. Thomas shared tales of similar societies across Britain, their battles to protect mystical knowledge. He warned that dark forces sought to exploit the codex's power for their own ends. Together, they planned to find the missing pieces of the sonata and secure them before the shadows closed in. Meanwhile, Sophie began to speak of dreams filled with strange music and distant voices calling her name. Emily worried these were not mere nightmares but warnings. Late one night, the manor was disturbed by the distant sound of a piano playing. Soft, haunting and unbearably sad. Emily followed the music to the drawing room, where the old grand piano stood silent and covered in dust. But when she looked closer, a single sheet of music lay open on the stand, a fragment of the hidden melody. Emily's heart raced. The past was no longer silent. It was calling her into the heart of the storm. The night air was thick with anticipation as Emily and Thomas prepared to uncover the final secret of the hidden melody. The fragments they had gathered pointed to a hidden chamber beneath Ashcombe Manor itself, a place that Eleanor had carefully concealed. With Sophie's dreamlike guidance and Thomas's knowledge of ancient codes, they deciphered the last piece of the sonata. It was a key, not just in music but in unlocking a door sealed for centuries. In the cold darkness beneath the manor, the trio found the entrance, a carved wooden panel hidden behind the old library shelves. Emily's hands trembled as she played the notes on the piano, a sequence that echoed through the chamber and triggered the lock to click open. Inside, dust motes danced in shafts of pale moonlight, revealing a small room lined with manuscripts, instruments, and a peculiar mirror framed in silver. The mirror shimmered unnaturally, its surface rippling like water. As Emily stepped closer, her reflection seemed to blur and change, showing glimpses of the past. Eleanor playing the piano, the guardians meeting in secret, the struggle to protect the codex. Suddenly, the mirror pulsed with energy and a voice, faint but clear, whispered through the chamber. The balance must be kept. The veil cannot fall. Emily realized the true power of the hidden melody. It was a living barrier between worlds, a safeguard against darkness. But as they prepared to leave, a chilling wind swept through the chamber, and the shadows closed in around them. The battle was far from over. Emily knew that protecting the legacy of Ashcombe and the future of her family would require courage beyond anything she had faced before. The hidden melody played on, haunting and hopeful, as the dawn began to break.